8:30. Chris on the bus. Back to the paper. Back to the Inquirer. Let's get right to it. We've already separated sections. We already established today's Friday, January 15th, and we already took a quick look at the sports section where Shake Milton had a big night last night. 31 points lead the Sixers in a rout over the Miami Heat. This time, the Sixers, with reinforcements returning, had no problem with the depleted Miami Heat. How the tables have turned. Sixers welcome back Shake Milton, Tobias Harris, and Matisse Thybulle, who each missed the last 3 games because of coronavirus protocols. None of them show much rushed in a 125-108 win over the Heat at the Wells Fargo Center. Milton finished with a game-high 31 points, Harris with 18, and Thybulle with 8. The Sixers. After Harden trade, all eyes on Ben Simmons. It's fair to wonder about Ben Simmons' psyche after the 24-year-old spent his Wednesday thinking he might have to move to Houston. But before we sit him down in a neutral color room and ask him to draw a picture of his emotions, okay, Dave, let's remember who he was going to be traded for. Whatever you think of James Harden's playing style or his defensive shortcomings or his age or his lifestyle choices or his beard or whatever other nit you might find to pick, he is indisputably one of the most unstoppable perimeter scorers in the history of the NBA. He isn't Michael Jordan or LeBron James, but he also isn't Anthony Davis or Chris Paul or Jimmy Butler or most of the other stars who have forced their way to greener pastures over the years. Okay. We got 2 players on the Flyers who are inspiring the Flyers. That would be, Oscar Lindblom, of course, returning from a cancer battle. And my guess is the other one is going to be Nolan Patrick. Let's see if my assumption is right over on D4. Now cancer-free, Lindblom said he played just an okay game in the opener. His goal, which was originally credited to Travis Konechny, but changed 2 hours after the game, deflected off his helmet and into the net. Doesn't matter who scores, but it is nice to get one, he said, smiling. It wasn't a highlight goal, but I'll take it. And yep, Nolan Patrick also scored a goal Wednesday and also supplies a little bit of a boost to the Flyers, a little morale boost. Nolan Patrick, as we know, is coming back from a year of treatment for migraines last year. Didn't play a single game for the Flyers in 2019-20. So, got a first goal. Got a goal in his first game back since April 2019. I don't know when the date was, but a while ago. Okay. Eagles interviewed 2 more candidates here. We got Robert Saleh and Arthur Smith. Robert Saleh just signed with the Jets, so he's not going to be coaching for the Eagles. And Arthur Smith is currently with the Atlanta Falcons, I believe. Since Saleh's gone, let's see what Smith's story is. If I can locate just the paragraph here on him. I'm talking about Mayo. It's not who. Okay. Let's move past it because I can't locate the paragraph here that just talks about who Arthur Smith's Jared Mayo expected to meet with the organization on Friday. Today. Happy Friday, by the way. TGIF. What are you going to do? You going to go out to the happening club scene maybe? Or catch a movie? Go see a game? Or maybe you're just going to sit in your house and watch TV. So, who is Vegas Vic picking for this weekend's NFL playoff games? He's got the Packers over the Rams. and -6.5, the Packers. He's got the Bills -2.5 over the Ravens. Browns +10 over the Chiefs. So he thinks they're going to hang. He thinks they're going to hang with the Chiefs. It's an interesting game, Browns-Chiefs, isn't it? Looking at the Chiefs, they were 14-12 straight up and 6-9-1 against the spread. They were 3-5 ATS at home and 5-8-1 as a favorite. They went over 8 times and under 7 times with one push. The Browns were 12-5 straight up and 7-10 against the spread. They were 4-5 ATS on the road and 3-3 as an underdog. Saints, he's picking -3 over Bucks. In case you want to get your wagers on, if it's legal in your state. Of course. Okay. Coach says Flowers can be stronger and even strength. Flowers need to improve their even strength play if they're going to sweep their season opening 2-game series with the Pittsburgh Penguins, Coach Alain Vigneault hinted after Thursday's practice. The teams, coming off the Flyers' 6-3 win Wednesday, will meet Friday at the Wells Fargo Center at 7 p.m. tonight. Are you going to the game? Oh, yeah. They don't have fans. They don't have fans at the games. Just gritty. Just gritty on a stage. It's cool, but... After watching the game and talking with my staff, there is no doubt that I feel we can be better 5-on-5, Vigneault said after practice Thursday in Voorhees. We did finish on some of the opportunities, but we spent more time than we needed in our zone. Mind you, I don't want to take anything away from the Penguins. They are a real strong team with great one-on-one players and great players that can do a lot of things off the rush. I thought there was a lot to like about our game, he said. We had periods of the game where we carried the play. The types of breakdowns that we had resulted in some high-quality scoring chances against. We've got to do a better job so that we minimize some of those catastrophic type scenarios. Standings, let's take a quick look at the Sixers right now. The Sixers are at 9-4. Boston 7-3 at the top of the Eastern Conference's Atlantic Division. No, the Flyers are 1-0. They're going to be hoping for a 2-0 start tonight. Weather. Look at today's high. 51. PM shower in places, however. And then we go into the 40s, as you see here. And we stay in the 40s through next Thursday, where we drop to 39 in the Philadelphia region. Urban Meyer, as we just saw here, went to the Jaguars. That was a big get, I believe, for that squad. Urban Meyer was a big fish. I had heard a lot of talk about where he was going to go. He's gone 187-32, a staggering winner percentage of 8.853, 85%, and stops at Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, and finally Ohio State. It's a hell of a record. 187-32. 85% winning percentage. Whew. My goodness. Goodness gracious. Sports. That was good. Done. Life. Want to just jump right to Carolyn? Carolyn hacks. What kind of question from the peanut gallery is she addressing today? Let's find out. Only one way to find out, and that's to read it. Question. My husband and I live in a rural area of our state. where our grown children will not plant roots when the time comes, maybe in 5 years. I want to move near my children and possible grandchildren one day. Husband says he is never moving. I did not live by extended family when I was a child, nor did I have family nearby when raising my own. I am weary of all the driving, typically 5 to 6 hours one way. We are close to our children, and I believe they would want us close by, not on the same street, but in the same town. This situation gives me anxiety. I guess I just have to wait until they settle down to figure it out. Answer. You don't, quote, just have to wait. You can wait and prepare. Specifically, you can wait and scrimp and save and pinch and save every penny. Assuming you're in a position to, of course, given the asymmetrical economic crap storm we're in right now. If you own your home, then you can tend to it as the asset you may need it to be in a few years. Ask a local real estate agent what steps pay off. Because every bit of money you can secure or plan for now is power, flexibility, and self-determination later. When the time comes for your children to settle, you will be so glad you thought ahead. Whether these savings help finance the relocation you want, or a compromise apartment just for you near the kids, or the transportation you hire to cut the driving. My husband says he is never moving, plants a flag decisively for him. You are alert to changing circumstances and aware of your own history, needs, and preferences. Use that and your 5-year lead time to be thoughtful and proactive about what your husband's intransigence means. Intransigence means and doesn't mean for you. Basically, she's saying, why don't you call your husband out? Why don't you say, listen, buddy, this isn't all about you. This relationship is a two-way street. Another question. Bonus question from Carolyn. What is the best way to support a spouse who receives feedback at work regarding project management skills that is upsetting to them? And, based on what I've seen at home, accurate. Uh-oh. The latest non-work example happened just yesterday. The situation is complicated by the fact that the feedback was not delivered well. Is there ever a time and place to address the core issues without making them feel attacked on all fronts? Answer. Your best option is not to gift feedback in the mouth. This true thing needed to be said, and when the workplace became the messenger, you got spared. So, be as softly cushioned as you can without muffling the truth. Horoscope. Let's see what nonsense they're saying is in store for Scorpios today. You will have visitors or other activity around the house. Stay safely distanced. No, I won't. I will stay safely distanced. I won't have visitors, as far as I know. Family members expressed ideas that can take a getting used to. You might live part of the time in another residence. No, I'm not. This is my home. Right here. So. Thanks for another paragraph of nothing. Comics, no thanks. Life. Done. Region. Let's see. Philadelphia School District. Some classes likely in February. Kids up to grade 2 may return to class 2 days a week. That's all we can get. It's 2 days a week for 3 grades. K, 1, 2. Come on. How many kids is that? 32,000. Okay. Roughly a third of the district students will have the option of sending them back to school 2 days a week on a yet-to-be-determined date, though the superintendent said it would probably be next month. About 10,000 children have signed up to return. Students will have the option to remain virtual. So less than 1/3 of the kids want to go back in that grade band, or sign up to go back. Not necessarily they don't want to go back, but they sign up to go back. They have their own reasons, these families, as to why they don't want to send children to school. Our return is not conditioned on vaccines, Height, the superintendent of the Philadelphia School District, said at a Thursday news conference. However, we naturally support expediting the vaccines. Do you? Good. Here's a follow-up story about that man who was killed in Brewery Town yesterday, walking his dog. Last night. It was last night, or the night before. The kindest person. That's his sister. I was reading a little, I guess, with his dog. Rue was the dog's name. I was reading a little bit more about this tragedy last night. There he is. 25-year-old man. Just walking his dog. Shot dead. And I think that what I was reading was his wallet was found at his house. So they didn't get any money. They didn't get his wallet. And his phone and his keys were at the scene of the shooting. So, what happened? I don't know if he was targeted. I don't know if they were going to rob anyone. His sister said, if he's walking his dog, why would he have a ton of cash on him? I don't get it. It's a shame. Brian Monroe, professor, another person, this person died of, it's a sudden passing. It doesn't look like it was a murder, though. Brian Monroe, who once held leadership posts at CNN and Ebony magazine, was a titan, said a peer. He was a professor and a media leader. He has a heart attack. 55 years old. Whew. Sudden passing shocked the journalism world, including many who had come to know and love the well-connected, big-hearted teacher and journalist who had a sizable Rolodex that he frequently used to introduce students to high-profile speakers, such as Soledad O'Brien. I recognize him. I recognize this guy. All right, well, now we'll go to the obits of the not-so-famous. Siegfried of Siegfried and Roy died. But in terms of the local folks, let's take a look at them. Let's give them their due respect. We have William Devlin, lieutenant colonel, United States military. Marine Corps. William Devlin was educated by the Sisters of Mercy at Mercy Academy, and this made a lasting impression on him his whole life. He enlisted in the Marines in early 1942 while attending LaSalle. He was commissioned and deployed to the Pacific. He returned to Philadelphia in 1946 and coached track at LaSalle while teaching high school history in the Philadelphia public school system, principally at Lincoln High School. He earned a master's degree from the University of Penn in 1947, and thereafter continued his doctorate work at Penn. In 1951, he was recalled to active duty during the Korean War, serving as combat cargo officer aboard the USS Ogankon, an attack transport designed for amphibious assaults. In 1963, he was elected Republican City Chairman of Philadelphia and spent his next 17 years in politics. How about this guy? What a life. Robert Gahan, 77, retired Philadelphia firefighter. Randolph Hall Big Red Vogel, 69 passed peacefully on November 27th. His hobbies included being a dedicated Philly sports fan and visiting local diners. He attended Frankfort High School and played football. Then Glassboro State, and played varsity tennis. Then went on to complete an MPA at the University of Arkansas. All right, everyone. Rest in peace. Region finished at 2029. Last but not least, front page. Front section. All right. Amid vaccine hopes, deaths soar. January is on track to be PA's deadliest month. We saw Biden outlining his $1.9 trillion relief plan. We kind of talked a little bit about that yesterday, about the money that kids could get, that you get for having kids. Let me just get to that. Let me just reiterate it. A major expansion of tax credits is also included in Biden's proposal, both for children and lower-income workers. Biden's plan would expand a tax credit for children to $3,600 a year per child under 6 years of age. That's $4,200 for my family. Oh, excuse me. Recalculate. $7,200 for my household. Okay. It'll also extend eligibility for the credit to millions of very poor families. It would dramatically boost the earned income tax credit, a tax benefit for workers, from $530 to $1,500. Okay. New York sues New York Police Department over protest response. Interesting. New York's Attorney General sued the New York Police Department on Thursday, calling the rough treatment of protesters against racial injustice last spring part of a long-standing pattern of abuse that stemmed from inadequate training, supervision, and discipline. Attorney General Letitia James's lawsuit includes dozens of examples of alleged misconduct during the spring demonstrations in the wake of George Floyd's police killing in Minneapolis, including the use of pepper spray and batons on protesters, trapping demonstrators with a technique called kettling, and arresting medics and legal observers. Quote, "We found a pattern of deeply concerning and unlawful practices that the NYPD utilized in response to these largely peaceful protests," James said at a news conference announcing the lawsuit. Here's another police officer disciplined over a post. Vincent Rotondi had written that he was, quote, "ready to go to war." What is wrong with these people? Detective in the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office has been placed on restricted duty and had his gun taken away after posting on social media that he is ready to go to war over the false claims that the president election was rigged. "I'm unfortunately ready to go to war. There's no negotiating when it's believed that the election was rigged," Detective Vincent Rotondi wrote in a recent Facebook post obtained by the Inquirer, in which he used the name Vinnie Rowe. Not enough of an alias there, buddy. "Unfortunately, only war will change this outcome, as it was needed for then Revolutionary War and First Civil War. I'm done debating, just waiting now." You are a fool. I guess. So what's the story? Where is he now? Where's he? What's McNesby saying? the president of the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 5, which represents detectives at the district attorney's office. He could not comment Thursday because he had not spoken with the detective. What kind of defense are you going to offer him? Now he's just shooting off the hip. Yeah, that's the problem. I like to think that, like, our public servants, our police officers, others that have a large measure of their job grounded in needing to have the trust of the public. That they're straight shooters, that they are not biased, and that they are out to protect and serve and care for all people. So you want to project that type of lifestyle and that type of attitude and engender that type of trust through your public interactions, whether they be personal or professional, in your capacity as a police officer or a firefighter or an EMT or even a school teacher, potentially. You're just held to a higher standard in a way. You're just held to a higher expectations around your, behavior in the public realm, particularly. So just don't post stuff like that on social media. Just don't do it. I mean, it's the examples of it just not working out for people are piling on top of each other every day almost. So you have a responsibility to not talk about going to war, comparing what you need to do to Revolutionary Wars, Civil Wars, and perpetuating this myth that the election was rigged. As a police officer in the DA's office, or any police officer, just stay out of the fray in public. You want to talk to your fellow colleagues about it at the water cooler, virtually at the water cooler, whatever it is these days, have at it. Talk about it. Gripe about it. Just save your job and your livelihood. And when you're typing in the post, just let me read this. Let me think about how this could land, considering my position in the world. Delete. Call my buddy. Complain. DC is no place to be next week. That's an understatement. Janice Armstrong. One of the ways I had planned to celebrate next week's presidential inauguration was by heading to the campus of Howard University, where Vice President-elect Kamala Harris and I both graduated. I thought it would be fun to sip champagne out in the yard and socialize with other alums, similarly psyched that the first female and first black and Asian elected to the nation's second highest office is one of us. But that was before last week's violent failed insurrection at the Capitol. The left a police officer dead, and reports that pro-Trump extremists are planning even more violence for the days leading up to the inauguration. It's a shame, actually, thinking about that. Like, there are a lot of people, like Janice, and others that relate to, Kamala Harris's personally relate to her historic, appointment as vice president. And they can't even enjoy the moment in person. They can't even go and celebrate, in D.C. Properly masked, properly distanced, all that stuff, because of these punks ruining it. These entitled punks. Delusional punks. future of our democracy is at stake. For the sake of the nation, the security of both Biden and Harris needs to be the first consideration. That's why I say let them be sworn in as scheduled on January 20th, but keep the ceremony really small and brief. Skip the long speeches and pomp. This isn't the year to have all of those members of government in attendance. Maybe even move the whole thing indoors. Dozens on FBI watch list were in D.C. on January 6th. Suspected white supremacists were among those in the terrorist screening database. Dozens of people on a terrorist watch list were in Washington for pro-Trump events on January 6th, a day that ended in a chaotic crime rampage. The majority of the watch list individuals in Washington that day are suspected white supremacists whose past conduct so alarmed investigators that their names have been previously entered into the National Terrorist Screening Database, or TSDB, a massive set of names flagged as potential security risks. The watch list is larger and separate from the no-fly list the government maintains to prevent terrorism suspects from boarding airplanes, and those listed are not automatically barred from any public or commercial spaces, current and former officials said. Maybe they should be. Oh, we got another emergency responder charged in the siege. A Delco firefighter, Delaware County that is, for those not from the area. Robert Sanford is accused of hurling a fire extinguisher at police. A Delaware father and son also surrendered. Not looking good for those groups of employees right now. The optics do not look good. Hey, only a few bad apples, they say. But doesn't mean they don't ruin that bunch. Or spoil the bunch. And the reason why that saying exists. McDonald's vows to stop use of key chemicals in packaging. I love me some Donnies. Love me some Donnies. I like fast food generally. Donnies, Wendy's, BK when I'm in the mood for a Whopper, which doesn't really happen as frequently as it used to in my old teenage days. I used to be a big Whopper guy. I moved on a little bit. Taco Bell, Popeyes. But Donnie's, it's where it's at for me. Uber Eats, sometimes I get a little bit tempted later in the evening, get myself an Uber Eats Donnie's delivery. Usually I'll go with a McChicken sandwich. Maybe a burger. Just a simple cheeseburger. I'll usually customize it a little bit though. And then I'll get like a medium fry. If I'm looking for a meal, I usually go QP with cheese. Large. And then sometimes when I'm in the mood for a Big Mac, I'll do a Big Mac meal. Hold the sauce. Or I ask them to put the sauce on the side, which they sometimes do. Or sometimes they just forget and I just type no sauce. Because sometimes they lather it with too much of the special sauce and it just overwhelms everything. I like tasting the patties. I like the shredded lettuce. I like shredded lettuce a lot. For some reason, I'm a big shredded lettuce guy. On tacos, on my burgers, hoagies, Italian hoagies. I like some shredded lettuce on my hoagies. But so it looks like Donnie's, in a victory for health and environmental safety advocates, the largest fast food chain has promised to stop using potentially harmful chemicals in its packaging. McDonald's on Wednesday announced it will remove all PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances from wrappers, containers, and any other packaging served to guests by 2025. Sometimes called forever chemicals, certain PFASs take a long time to break down and can accumulate in the environment, drinking water, and in the human body. Some may cause cancer, result in low infant birth weights, and increased cholesterol levels, among a host of other health issues, according to the Environmental Protection Agency. The McDonald's announcement comes just a few months after an August report found that packaging used by several popular fast food restaurants chains contained dangerous fluorine levels, McClatchy News previously reported. Besides McDonald's, researchers found the chemicals in products served by Burger King, Wendy's, Cava, Freshie, and Sweetgreen, McClatchy reported. We urge McDonald's to phase these chemicals out by 2022 and ensure substitutes are safe and reusable. Other major fast food chains like Burger King and Wendy's should join them in driving PFAS out of food packaging. Now, I don't want chemicals in my Big Mac box or my McChicken wrapper. Still going to eat both those sandwiches and more, but I don't want chemicals in there. Thanks, Donnie's, for continuing to make progress in your efforts to be more environmentally friendly and fresh. Because the fresh beef on the QP with cheese, big difference in my opinion. Big difference. It was good before it was fresh, the beef. When they brought in fresh beef for the quarter pounder with cheese. You haven't had one recently. Revisit. Op-eds and letters. Let's see what kind of letter writers we have today. Let's take a look together. Maurice Lee, St. David's, safe seats in D.C. Mark Thiessen calls the Georgia election results a catastrophe, citing, among several specious arguments, that Democrats could make the District of Columbia a state, giving them 2 safe seats. Oddly, Mr. Thiessen has no problem with a state like Wyoming, with a largely white and Republican population of about 580,000, providing 2 safe seats for the Republicans, but perished the thought of giving the largely African-American population of D.C., over 700,000, actual representation. I guess the voters of the District of Columbia aren't Mr. Thiessen's kind of voters. Can anyone doubt why that is? Nick Odell, Phoenixville. No Trump incitement. Let's see what Nick Odell's argument here is for a claim of Trump's lack of incitement here in the violence in the Capitol on the 6th. On January 6th, some 100,000 U.S. citizens came to D.C. to exercise their right under the First Amendment of the Constitution to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. They believed the presidential election was won by fraud, a belief shared by nearly 40% of Americans of all political persuasions. Where's that number coming from, Nick? Can you cite that? Is that the comment you found in Reddit somewhere, that 40% of Americans believe that the election was rigged? Did you see that in like a thread on a Twitch stream you were following? A tiny minority, perhaps a couple hundred, stormed the U.S. Capitol building. Dozens of editorials, op-eds, and letters accused President Donald Trump of inciting his followers to commit that crime. I searched transcripts of his speech to the crowd and tweets for such evidence. I did find such things as, I'm asking everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful, no violence. Remember, we are a party of law and order, respect the law, and our great men and women in blue. And several times, go home. At the end of his speech, let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue and take back our country. If those were inciting to commit insurrection or sedition and impeachable offenses, the words have lost their meaning. Don't know what Nick's trying to get at there. I probably shouldn't even have read that, given at the time. I wanted to give Nick a chance to argue. He made a terrible argument that made no sense. Good try, Nick. Father Paul Morrissey. Bishops must announce the big lie, which he's saying that the election was rigged. Bishops should come together as if they have some moral standing, some ethical standing. The Catholic faith. They have their own crisis to dig out of still. Annika Fliork-Schneid, Ph.D. Ignorance or dishonesty, neither acceptable. Linda Fecchio, North Wales, changing the hearts, minds of the misled. I see a lot of hand-wringing about how impossible it is to change people's minds and what we do about the Americans who, quote, don't believe the election was valid. We have a recent model of success in the field of employment discrimination for how to do it. The way to change their minds is to change their behavior. And you do that by enforcing criminal and civil penalties against the illegal behavior that has occurred in the last 4 years, particularly in the last 7 days. This was the experience in employment discrimination law, that once you made discriminatory behavior illegal and actionable, then people's hearts and minds followed that to genuinely understand and appreciate diversity in new ways. We are social animals. We have a tendency to believe the standards that are enforced by the society at large, for good or for ill. If anyone had taken a firm stand against Trump's illegal behavior from the get-go, none of this would have happened. But we can't turn back the clock. All we can do now is enforce the laws that are on the books. When people see that there is criminal prosecution of folks who incite each other with nasty and violent rhetoric, they will stop saying it. This is exactly what has happened in terms of diversity in employment in the last 35 plus years. It stops when you use the law to make it stop. Lastly, Ashley Montague, Philadelphia. I'm seeing news reports about concerns over, quote, armed protests in state capitals over the weekend. Why on earth would any city allow an armed protest just days after a deadly insurrection at the U.S. Capitol? At the Women's March in January 2017, protesters were certainly not allowed to be armed. We weren't even allowed to carry backpacks or water bottles. Would states allow armed Black Lives Matter protesters to march? In the op-eds here, Trump could issue pardons to Capitol rioters. Trump knows the people who stormed the Capitol love him. Here's a real bizarre question. Will he love them back with a mass pardon? Good question, David Savalos, NBC News and NBC legal analyst and a lawyer at Savalos and Wong in Newtown. Pro and con. Yes, Trump must be impeached and removed. No, removing Trump now lacks precedent. If you want to determine which argument sways you, whether it's David French saying yes or Emery McClendon saying no, go to Phila.com. Inquirer.com. They got a new URL in recent years. And check it out. Otherwise, we're good. We've made it. January 15th. In the books. I'm going to do another stream with the times. It's a separate video. So whether it be shortly or a little bit longer, maybe a couple. I got to go pick up Grace from school midday today. Around 11:45, 12 o'clock. For an appointment. So I'm going to try to come back before that time and do the New York Times. But for now, take a breather. Let you enjoy the rest of your morning, perhaps. And let's reconvene. Thank you. I'll see you later.